Hi, my name is Joe Sterne, and I founded Obvious Coffee Roasters with my wife Julia in 2016. We offer small batch, freshly roasted coffee, specifically roasted via the fluid bed method. If you want to get a little technical, to people in Ohio as well as across the country. We started our business in 2016. We're still going strong with farmers markets and direct to consumer on the web, and working on a coffee trailer hopefully this summer. So I would say one of the biggest things that actually drove me to start our own coffee company was some of the experiences I've had in third wave coffee shops. So I am a type 2 diabetic, so I have to be very careful with what I put in my body, especially in liquid form. And I find that a lot of these third wave shops were very particular about what sweeteners and other accompaniments that you could put into the coffee would be. So it wasn't uncommon to ask them if they had artificial sweeteners and then to look at you like you were absolutely insane. So I didn't want that. I didn't like that experience personally. I didn't enjoy having somebody say that, hey, artificial sugar is bad and you're a bad person for using it when I actually have a medical reason why I should be using it. So that kind of drove me to really look at my newfound hobby of coffee roasting, which I stumbled upon in a slightly different light, just because I wanted to make sure that we could offer a compassionate experience for people that want to have better coffee, but they don't know where to go. So they're used to a Starbucks, they're used to a Dunkin', they're used to a Tim Hortons or Waffle House or some other mass market coffee vendor. They want to try something different, but they might be a little bit intimidated. So that's where we come in. We offer some great coffee that can, swing with the best of them in terms of third wave shops, but we're much more welcoming than I've seen a lot of third wave shops around here. So we create a personalized experience for every customer in a variety of different ways. So as I mentioned previously, we do direct consumer via the web. So we are using MailChimp specifically for some of our email marketing. We're currently using Square as an in-person checkout process, which does offer loyalty management as well as the ability to text and email. For our website, we're actually using Squarespace. So that's giving us the option to blog alongside our products, but it's also giving us the ability to match up the people that are ordering stuff online with the people that we're working with in person and making sure that that is an enjoyable experience. Also, in person, we have several regulars at the farmers markets that I work at specifically, to a point where I've started just memorizing their order. So it's stuff as little as that, where you see them, walking down the street when it's outside, or walking in, inside the building during the winter months, and saying like, "Hey, hi, nice to see you. Do you want your usual?" And a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, people really do enjoy that because they feel like somebody cares enough to remember their order and wants to make sure that they're having an enjoyable experience while they're shopping. So fresh is very important to Obvious Coffee because it's also very important to coffee in general. So a green coffee bean can last anywhere from, depending on how you store it, anywhere from months to years. But as soon as you roast it, that's when you really not only change the molecular structure of the bean, but you also essentially turn on a timer. So just like I like to compare coffee to pepper. So peppercorns, they smell great when they're completely intact. As soon as you bash that open, you're exposing more of the surface area of that peppercorn to the air. The volatile oils that are in that peppercorn start to evaporate. The same thing happens with coffee. So if you want your coffee to last the longest, you actually keep it whole bean and then you grind it as soon as you want to brew it, or right before you're planning on brewing it, just so you are getting some of those volatile oils in your coffee, not evaporating into the air. But even with grinding it before, the longer that you wait to brew that coffee over time, the more oils naturally kind of start to evaporate. And it doesn't necessarily go bad, but what happens is the flavor kind of starts to decrease to a certain point, where if you are drinking coffee that was roasted a year ago opposed to drinking coffee that was roasted a few days ago, it's night and day in terms of the flavors that you'll taste, and from what we've seen, the enjoyment of the coffee itself. So Obvious Coffee was started in 2016 when I came across a YouTube video of how to roast coffee at home. So at the time, it was something where I was looking for a new hobby to do. And I saw this YouTube video. They had a popcorn popper they got off of Amazon and some green beans. And I was like, well, you know what? I could do that. This sounds like it could be interesting. So I bought those things, took it out to the back porch, and turns out I really like making green things brown. So after that initial part with the popcorn popper, I ended up going onto a website called Sweet Maria's, which is a very well-known West Coast-based hobbyist roaster site. And from there, I got myself what's called a Benmore, which is another brand of a drum roaster that roasts just under a pound reliably. And I started roasting more and more coffee. So it got to a point where my wife and I couldn't drink all of this coffee before it would just sit there, for weeks and weeks due to like caffeine limits or something. So at that point in time, we started giving it to friends and family. And overwhelmingly, the feedback we got was, this is amazing. How much does it cost? Where are you selling it? And up till that point in time, I didn't even consider actually doing this as a side business. It was more of just, hey, I'm having fun and this was cool. So what we did is we ended up finding a local farmers market that was right down the road, about a town over in Aurora, that had a market on, I believe it was Wednesday afternoons from 4 to 7. And what we did is we paid the booth fee. We went there and we started selling coffee, both brewed as well as bagged, and to kind of test out the theory to see if strangers would actually come up, try it, drink it, kind of go from there. They did, if that wasn't abundantly clear at this point in time. So from there, we ended up starting looking at other farmers markets. And then within the last couple of years, we started also looking at the B2B side of things. So we do supply a few donut shops, a smoothie shop, and actually a shop in Aurora Farms, as well as some other local Ohio places with coffee from a wholesale perspective. So it's something where it's definitely grown very carefully over the last few years, and it's been an absolute blast. So when the pandemic hit in the beginning of 2020, we actually decided to take a break from the market because we thought, naively at the time, that it would be over in 6 months. So right around March, we told our vendor friends, we're like, hey, we're going to take a break. We'll see you guys in a few months once all of this blows over. The end of July rolls around and we realize that, hey, this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So we're like, all right, we'll come back in August. We'll be super careful. We'll have PPE on and see how the market goes. Because at that point in time, wasn't really sure what the demand was going to be, nor was I sure of the traffic. What we found was actually pretty surprising for us, that because of where the pandemic was in August, we ended up having double the sales that we would normally have the prior August, because people wanted to be outside, they wanted to shop in a safe environment, and most importantly, they wanted to buy local. So we've noticed since basically August of 2020 to now that there's been a big spike in our sales and demand due to that, which is definitely, we're very thankful for. I know that there are some industries that aren't as lucky, Right now, when it comes to sales during the pandemic, we actually found that our sales grew both direct to consumer over the website and definitely in person at farmers markets. So I would say that the biggest piece of advice I would have for people at this point in time is going to sound pretty corny, but it would be have empathy with your customers, have empathy with your suppliers, and have empathy with your coworkers. It's especially if you're employing other people. It's still a very strange time. It's been over a year in a pandemic. The vaccine rollout, well, thankfully it's rolling out, has been very inconsistent. People don't know when they're necessarily going back to an office or in person if they are in certain careers, while other people never had the luxury of not going into work. So being understanding of people's different experiences and having some empathy for their situation goes a really long way, especially when it comes to customers, because a lot of customers are in unstable situations at this point in time, and they're not sure what makes sense for them going forward. And if you amplify that uncertainty or just kind of steamroll over it, you'll probably lose them as a customer, as opposed to listening to them and understanding their point of view, which will generally help you not only keep their business, but make them hopefully a more loyal consumer to you.